Thank you. We'll get started on our briefing. So first item on the agenda is the forward agenda, which is attached. Any questions or comments on that? Is Dave there? Yes, okay. That's all right. He's not next on because Mark is. So we'll go on to Mark. He's going to give us an update on the Dog and Cat Management Act. Topical.
Yeah, thank you.
I've never seen the Dog and Cat Management Act quoted more in correspondence.
Yes, given recent incidents in some of our towns, I thought I would add some changes to the Dog and Cat Management Act that have just come into effect as of yesterday. We got notification only about 2 weeks ago that the first part of the Dog and Cat Management Reform Amendments are going to be coming into effect, and the impact that that's going to have on people who do the right thing is going to be quite significant. So you'll probably get complaints about it. Just going to quickly go over a couple of the big things that have changed. So at the moment, wandering at large, your dog's out, it's not on the lead, and it's committing an offence there. Was a $210 fine, now it's gone to $315. So for just stepping 4 paws out onto the footpath at the front or doing worse, $315 fine, so pretty significant for people. Dog attack is something that, as part of the amendment, they were trying to try and figure out more of a disincentive for people to, or incentive to do the right thing and be held responsible or accountable. So the current offence is, penalty is $315, and that's attack, harass, or chase. So it's they do it as a one size fits all, but it wasn't quite working. So what has happened now? If a dog attacks, harasses, or chases an animal, person, or bird and inflicts death or serious injury, the expiation fee is $1,000. If it doesn't result in death or serious injury, it's $500. There's a couple of other things where you've got a prescribed breed. There's like 5 breeds we don't have any in Australia or in South Australia or in a council area that we have to deal with. But if it's a prescribed breed or a dog that is subject to a dangerous dog order, offences are increased on that as well. So $1,500 if it kills or seriously injures, $1,000 if it doesn't. So even if it gets out and just chases and that. Oh, sorry, and dog prescribed breed, declared dangerous dog, to wander at large is $1,000 as well. So we've got a couple of new ones. If they happen to get out and wander, $2, $2 for wandering at large. You're going to breach of the control order as well. What I just want to highlight is there's going to be some significant financial impacts when people start getting hit with these things, and you're potentially going to get some responses from that. Our response is do the right thing, you won't hear from us. So there's a few extra penalties that are coming in that haven't been commenced yet. It's going to give us powers where we've had repeat wandering at large dogs. We can issue a control order on that. There's some higher penalties. So you've been out 3 times, but you haven't done anything. We've limited on what we could do. Now it's the case that we can get a control order for that dog that goes down as just a little annoyance. They might pay the fines each time, but it's just more of a penalty that we can put on. We're not sure when that's going to come in. So
you get $1,000 fine. Who does the money go to?
Us. If they pay it.
Yeah, that was
so. Like, if you issuing of fines doesn't mean you're going to get compliance, and doesn't mean you're going to get the money. Yeah. So
you don't get the money, so you go to court and they give you a dollar on a week because they're on a Centrelink or.
Yeah, so you can have it like the process for it is issue an expiation notice, issue a fine, 28 days to pay it. Don't pay that. There's a reminder fee we put on there, $75. So it goes up there. Don't pay that within 14 days. Then we send it through the Fines Enforcement Recovery Unit. There it increases substantially, but that money doesn't come to us. So there's like victims of crime and then their own probably $200 or $300 additional fees on them. So your $200 wandering or $210 wandering at large will probably go in a ballpark about $500 when it gets enforced by Fines Enforcement. They'll say, oh, I didn't receive the notice. They'll come back to council, back at that original amount. We'll go through the process again. Oh, I'm going to drip feed and I'm going to do $50 a month, if that. and we'll eventually get the stuff. So
Either that or they put one of those jackets on, work for payback, they say.
stuff like that. So it's a disincentive. The increase in price is a disincentive for people who are going to be financially motivated like that. The people who don't care, it's like you've lost your license for speeding, whatever, they're still driving. So they're still get those ones. But just with the increases that we've got there, especially for the wandering at large and that stuff like that, trying to get some information and correspondence out to, or communication out to all of their dog owners, not only the dog owners, but the communities. I'm going to try and figure out how we do it in a cost effective and best bang for buck way. And we might have some call fleets in certain areas. Got a few issues popping up around our waters. So we've got little hot spots. Morgan obviously is very topical. Got something at Cadell as well. So I'm not going to send out a communication or hard copy anything to all of our dog owners. Got that $3,500, $1.50 a letter. I'm not spending that because not everyone's going to be the problem. So thought I'd give you a bit of an update on that. Questions?
Any questions?
Was there any, I think that one of the issues was, seizing a dog that is attacked another animal. Was there any increase in that range of support for that and the legal environment, like legal?
No, that stuff all is still the same. So the powers, if we're going to seize a dog for, if it's wandering at large, we can seize it. All the steps that we can already take. There's no specific penalty for that, and there's no increase in powers that council needs to that needed to be put in place that council doesn't already have. So with the current situation, nothing would have changed. These new new amendments wouldn't have changed anything what we're doing there in this instance anyway.
So it's a larger fund, just can't hold animals or anything or impound them to a point of payment. Like you're saying, it's going to be they get their animal back and then they can choose whether or not they want to pursue the dribs and drabs process or to pay the fine.
Yes and no. We can't, if the dog's out and it's only just wandering at large, we can't hold it indefinitely until they've paid that. They've got to pay registration if it's not registered. They've got to pay the impounding fee. So initially you could be looking at maybe $150 to get it out. There's no, whilst there is a reform, if they don't pay the fines, then it's going to be escalating, but don't have to pay it straight away to get it back. Some people it doesn't, it wouldn't have the effect anyway.
Wandering being slightly different though, I guess, when there's been an attack or say like a person injured or something like that.
Yeah, so there's, depending on the severity of it, what we need to do, we can still hold for periods of time, depending on what our intended course of action is. But so there hasn't been any increases from that side of things. And usually we're not issuing fines like straight away. We're going to complete the investigation and figure out what is going to be the best course of action. There might not be a fine, it might be prosecution, and that's going to be months. So depending on what we need to do there.
Thanks, Mark. Any other questions? No, keep up the good work. We appreciate it. Okay, next item on the agenda is Dave with service activities and functions, phase 2, infrastructure and field services. As you would be aware, we've implemented development and community services. So this is the next stage, and then corporate and financial services and executive services follow in the year. Dave's got a handout and got a presentation.
Okay, what it provided you is just a cover sheet of some of the activities that we're looking at doing. This a bit of a revamp of where we've been from. What's in front of you is there's obviously the categorisation of townships as they sit, and you've got a copy there where there's an activity or a frequency engine which we'll take out for the time being. What we're looking at doing is obviously working through the process of how we apply our activities so that we can try and balance across them and balance our resources. So when you look at this, what we used to have was the A, B, C, D and D, like land and waters. We had rural living A, rural living B. We've actually added rural areas because there's a lot of areas there which are non-specific sites. and scrolling to the right-hand side, Carol, is holiday homes, and we've changed that to publicly accessible holiday homes, which is the definition down below. So in what we've done is scroll down a little bit. So when you look at the activities, you look at the activities we undertake, they're the main, basically the main function, but there's a lot of subcategories under those areas. So road reserve maintenance can go from road verge to tree trimming to scrub clearing to all sorts of other type of works. Playground has about 3 or 4 different inspection processes we have to go through, and stormwater. All those areas actually have some form of sub-function. Just seeing if that's the one. One that was in there.
Can you make it smaller, Carol?
What we've done is expand this a little bit. Yeah, if I just concentrate on a couple of things that cost us some dollars. If you look at the first column down there, what we've added in there is there's doggy bags. Just to give you a bit of an idea of doggy bags, okay? They're about $35 a roll, they're decomposed, and people steal them and take them, and we just go back and put them back up. So we've made a decision quite some time ago that they're only putting them on sporting grounds that council look after, which is basically not like the Manamobile. They're at the leisure centre, they're at shack areas, they're boat ramps, they're everywhere. They cost us a lot of time and a lot of effort. So what we're doing is obviously where we have those, so just scroll down a bit more, you'll find that there are doggy bags in area A and B, but nowhere else in the area. So that's pulling back on a service. So that's going to create some controversy. So also in there is street sweeping. We over service on street sweeping, so I've got a street sweeping version of activity shortly. And because of the issues with community pageants and expenditure, we've included community pageant expended road closures in township A. So in theory, if Truro comes up and says, we want to do a town pageant, it's not in our activity list. So it sort of highlights that of what the activities we are. Further to that, I've made some additions about there, like our bin collections as to what services are provided in various areas. There are site specific down here. They still need a little bit of refinement, but what we've also included in that other column was all council areas, which is the rural area, because we didn't really accommodate for in the activity list of unsealed road maintenance, patching, and all those other areas that we do. So we're trying to accommodate for all the activities. Go to a copy, if you can close that one down. So when this comes up, basically it's the same graphic or same spreadsheet with the sub functions after it. So you see the same thing: A, B, C, D, R, A, R, B, rural, H, A. So when you start talking about sewer road repairs, they're the aspects that we've got to try and accommodate in the service levels. Now, what we found is trying to put together a service level in get like Gary's document, is if I did all that in one document, it's going to be about 20-page service activity. So we're just trying to refine how we're going to do it. But when you start looking through this, if you go from A down to say rural, look on the bottom tag there, Carol, you sort of look at those functions and say, well, there's a lot of functions in there. And how we're looking at, I suppose, addressing some of these functions is putting a schedule where the team will go out in each area, like north, central and south. The team will actually go out and then do a drive-by of footpaths, curbs and gutters. And they'll pick up all those things like in February, March. They'll actually set what they're going to do for the next financial year. So they can actually pick up those things. Yes, we do get the reactive matters, but what they'll be able to do is actually go through and do inspections. So they have an inspection process prior to them coming up. They do that with stormwater now. So they have pre-inspection pre-winter and one post-winter, just to pick up on any debris that's around the place. So putting inspection processes in place so that then we can calculate the work that needs to be done in accordance with what the budget is allocated. And as you would have seen along with that first spreadsheet, basically the activity is reduced to where it is. So it's population based, population and user based. So if you can click on that one. So in applying an analogy of doing it, and we've populated one of the documents. And actually, there's also a high community expectation about what we do, and we get spread very thin. So what we're trying to do is concentrate that effort and to bring it back so that we can actually fix things that we need to fix. I did make mention of one of the other council meetings that, you know, if we let a road fail, you're up for about $300,000 to rebuild that road. So we want to get to have better interventions on some of our more strategic areas.
So if you remember, this is the format that Gary had presented to Development and Community Services in. So what I'm hearing now is one of the challenges is getting all of your service activities into a similar format, but this is an example of what you've done with boat ramps.
And there'll be another one on the street sweep. So if you look at boat ramps, there's the general blurb in relation to it. It's a non-essential item, and if one was out for 14 days, theoretically we've got other boat ramps around the place. Okay, scroll down, we have obviously populated the figures. But when you start looking at where we are, and this will create its own little controversy as well as to how we highlight boat ramps, because there'll be other people saying, well, I want my boat ramp to be double pontoon, piles and so forth. So we've gone through and looked at what is a Class A based on townships. The only matter there is, I've got the large stand in there twice because you've got two river levels. You've got upper river and lower level.
Yeah, Swan Ridge, you know, to us. River Reserve Road at Bowling.
Okay, it was late last night. Okay. So yes.
That was my first thought. We need two there?
No, I don't. So no, that's an addition.
Okay.
So looking at where the townships are, which is, and what we're trying to do is capture why they're a Class A. It's because it's a regional destination and you get a lot of people going there, and it's an economic area. Class B, you've obviously got different matters. And when you look at the 2 visits per year under each of the classes, you see that what we're looking at doing is, and what we've done is, prior to October, the long weekend, which is when the main season starts, we've gone down and swept all the boat ramps and tidied them all up, and at present we're going through and regagging signage. But then at the end of the season, in April, once the season sort of closes off, we'll just do a post visit. It's not going to be a total clean up or anything like that. It's post visit, say that we've been there, have a look at it, and that's where we're comfortable, where we sit. Then you start looking, we'll do that in A's and B's, but when you look at C's, we might do it once a year. So it might just be the October one prior, and generally this might only just be an inspection at a later date. And the last class, next scroll down please, is we just need to put those ones in because they're all the informal ones which are more so earth ramps, which we can't do anything with anyway. So keep scrolling down, is obviously what we're looking at doing is just checking these items where applicable, and these are the actions that we'll be taking based on our initial inspection and our service level. So through these, I'll pass these out via email, so you actually got a bit of a spiel about it. Of note is when you look at reactive activities, I've got an inspection in 28 days. Like we're going to have an outage for 14 days of the boat ramp. Let's just say the boat ramp has a major dip at the bottom. Sometimes I might have to get a DA to get it done, or I might have to get a contractor in. And we don't have the specific items of plant for one-off type projects. So I might need 60 days to organise something. I know Blanchetown took a while to get actually sorted. So we're trying to give ourselves a bit of a different time frame to get there. That does sound like a long time, but it does take time to get some of these things on the ground.
So with the parade at Blanchetown, the one near the bridge.
Yep.
Did DIT actually hand that over to council?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But basically, everything with once they, what they normally do is when they build something new, everything that's superseded gets passed on to the local. So that was a.
The gift that keeps giving generally.
Yeah. Bypass.
Yeah.
So if you come to. The next one is street sweeping. Again, we had there's a high expectation in the community that the street sweeper will be out there all the time. I talked to other councils, and the council I was at region, previously at, we did it 3 times a year. We actually increased it to 4 times a year. We never actually had our own sweeper. We just came in and did sweeping. So I actually had an approach from Karina to plant share, like to share arrangements, which they're going to meet with us very shortly, so I can actually then assist them, which means that we might get assistance back, but they'll be paying for our costs. So there's an opportunity cost there for us. The street sweeper, they are a very expensive item of plant to repurchase. So obviously very mindful of replacement of that as well. But what we're looking at doing there is basically the same old blurb all the way through the street sweeping, but setting down the parameters and framework on how we're going to do it. So when you start looking at street sweeping there, if you stop there, Carol, if I looked at Township A, which is Manor Morgan, I'm only going to do it 6 times a year. Yeah, it takes a long time to go around, but I'll probably end up picking up the same product. It just means the street sweeper is going to do more runs to the dump and so forth. But that's what I need to actually just concentrate on rather than have the street sweeper working 10 months of the year, doing everything. And physically, if I put this in place, I actually have a resource which I can do something else with while it's not working there. The other ones are basically 3 times a year. So only looking at doing it a couple of times through the towns. And generally through the towns, it's only where there's curbing or townships. Because basically, I've said, build up of debris and so forth, you've got to pick that up. So that's pretty much that in a.
So one of the questions I have, Dave, is how are you going to progress? So the key is obviously getting feedback from the elected members before a report comes back to council and you endorse as we went through the process. So obviously, I don't know how many, you had 20 services, I think, Gary, and I don't know how many services you have, but then how many,
Too many.
and then it's about the then activity level, is that the correct terminology? And then getting that into the template or having to adjust it potentially if they don't fit in well to some extent. But getting that information for you, this question to the elected members, how do we get it to you to be able to digest and consider? Obviously we did it by exception last time, I think, Gary, from memory. Yeah, I'm just trying to get to the point where we want it to be endorsed and trying to understand how you need the information, because Dave could sit here and you could send it out and then you've got to read it or we present it. And Gary makes a comment if you would like on it.
I mean, it's coming along, and what I was sort of thinking too, in terms of the township classifications, it might be worthy of us putting that at the front of the schedule as a separate, so you don't have to.
The preamble.
And the other in the preamble, because I think in that way we know the classification of our townships up front, because that will apply to all services going forward as well.
Just a question on that. Do you have different classifications for different townships? So you use that township hierarchy for boat ramps,
No.
for street sweeping?
So
that might-
Madam Waters is a D, but it was in A for boat ramp.
Yeah.
But I do want to challenge the Madam Waters being D. The definition says unique development with specific infrastructure service stands and low permanent population. I think that's untrue. I think most of Madam Waters is now lived in by permanents. They also pay a lot of rates. I think that should, Manham/Port Manham/Madam Waters should be one service centre. Like they're pretty much the same.
So with that, sorry.
Yeah, so the other thing I was going to suggest to Dave, in terms of your classification, is again getting alignment with what we've got in the growth strategy.
Yeah.
So what we define a township versus a settlement versus chat settlement.
Yeah.
Because I think if we can align, and I think it will align a bit, particularly a rural living and rural living A and B. I think that's the one that's going to be probably the hardest. Probably do agree with the mayor that Manham Waters is probably just part of Manham Township. It is in the growth strategy. So again, I think just aligning some of our terminology and connection.
So, Doris, sorry, just before you have chance, is the question is how the information is
Yeah.
for you to be able to pick up those things. We're just trying to understand how we can best give that to you to provide the feedback for when it comes to that council report. You've had your questions answered.
Emailing us all the time.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that? ponder that thought, Victoria.
thing I want to say is Pondi, Pomputa, Kawira, 3 townships that are in my region that aren't on the list. And they often get forgotten. So I think for my little community over there on the other side of the river, we're like, you know, where do we sit? We're probably rural living A for me looking at this, or B, probably rural living B. But I just think, yeah, we are going to be doing some of this. We're
Yeah.
saying a classification on the front page.
Name the town.
This is important to have all the towns on
Yeah,
there.
agree.
So they're not classified as towns in the strategy.
Or community rural living. So I reckon that be
So
considered.
they're just in our.
Yeah, but I think it's good that they're all names. Then people then in my area will
agree.
know I'm Pondi, this is where I stand, this is what I expect of my service level.
I don't know how difficult it will be, but a map with, cut, for someone who likes the colour sort of thing, to look at a good map, could you, define these areas on the map with colour as well as have them listed by roads? Do you know?
Potentially could. A lot of these actually came from what was the development plan anyway.
Right.
So when you start looking at the site plan, I'll use Blanchetown as a perfect example. Blanchetown's a B, but next to it's got Shack area.
Right.
So they're not going to get the same as
Yeah.
Blanchetown.
Yeah.
So, you know, whereas Blanchetown's got a 50k speed zone, you're looking for footpaths. Shack area's got 30k speed zone, they've got open road they walk on. So it's not, it's totally different, two totally different packages.
So thoughts on how we get your feedback without overloading? And, you know, I think Gary's was 60 odd pages, was it? And yeah, we want it. Yeah. So for Dave to be able to get into a format, but then actually get you the feedback is a challenge.
Well, I think if you can, as Dave's doing them, send them out 2 or 3 at a time. If we're not feeding back and asking questions, then stop sending them to us because we're not doing our due diligence and come to a report. But if we are and Dave's getting, feeling like it's not wasting his time and it's getting good advice that will make the process better, keep doing that.
Because we don't want to get to the point where the report comes
Yeah.
and that's when all the questions come up
Yeah.
and the changes, because that's,
Yeah.
all right, we'll take that feedback.
And it's on us. If we don't
Yeah.
reply to those emails and we leave it all to the report, I'll bring a whip that meeting.
So for me, Dave, like trying to, given that we've progressed that format, to trying to get into that format, I think would be easier for the community in the end, because that's how we're going to use this document to say, this is the service level, this is what you're going to get. So that might just be some adjustment, Gary. And
I always said that the body of the schedule can change, you know, to suit the service, because up to the front end is very consistent. But when you get down to the table section, you know, it would be appropriate sometimes to have maybe 3 columns rather than 2 columns and put scales within tables. But I think taking the classifications out, putting them at the front of the schedule, that will actually work well, I think, going forward.
or the in front of the service if there is an adjustment. So if there was standard, then that's great, that's the front.
Yeah.
And then not be trying to include it in the table is what you're saying.
Yeah.
So, and then the other point is that the service activity, service level table in the document can be adjusted to.
Yeah,
suit the-
because like I said, in some instances, it's worth having a table within the table. So I think I'll work with Dave as to which ones, you know, suit that sort of format.
Would there be a benefit for us where, I mean, when we send out our rates notices and stuff like that to community with the mayoral letter and newsletter and stuff, that when we do get this a little bit fine tuned, that our areas and service levels for the areas could be maybe sent out as a small little pamphlet that goes when we send the rate notice to these different areas and communities. This really would help a lot of people knowing what do I expect from my council in my region. And it really is a great little thing for you to be able to see, well, I'm here, this is where I fit into. And it would just really affect our feedbacks we get from people, or people like I say, squeaky wheel syndrome. It really would help a lot with that, with communication, I think, with our ratepayers. If something like this could be prepared
It's
as
gonna
a,
be a big document, but we can certainly make it, once it's
Absolutely,
out, we can make it as part of the mayor's report. Hey, this is what we've done, go to this link and have a look.
We wouldn't be able to include a summary, but we absolutely will communicate
What
and
your
have this
region
on the
is.
website
Yeah.
and say, because you guys are going to sign off on it
Mm.
and say, this is a service standard. So when Dave gets, why isn't my boat ramp on my road getting done?
Mm.
Well, here is the document, here is the cost. And also you can use that information to go, actually, we want in Pomputa a class A boat ramp. Well, it's going to cost you X amount of dollars, or you don't want to do cap management, then you're going to save that money because that information is in like Gary's document.
There was another two slides on it, as well. I don't know whether you need to see those. One's just their swims, which is compliance anyway, which is very similar to what Gary's had to do with through compliance. And another one was actually like, just parks and guards, and it's a massive list of everything to, and that's, I suppose, the difficulty of trying to actually congest that into one of these documents. So I probably don't need to show you that.
You don't yet, yeah. So I think the message is some of your services or your service activities are complicated and challenging to be able to
Subjective to.
communicate it. Yeah. Well, that's where we just need a massage and.
I mean, you can always do like a link within there, like where you've got a lot of, where there's a lot of information for that sort of service, then is a link that, you know, if people are interested in that particular area, it goes to a external, all that information is in there. So instead of it being cluttered in that document, everyone really, people reading through and just going, whoa, it's all like, okay, the part of the information, it's sort of click on the link and you still get access to that information, but it's not, I don't know whether that's workable.
So I think our objective is to have it as uniform as possible.
Yeah.
You need as much information to do, but there needs to be some flexibility. So Dave will, as he progresses the drafts of each of these services, we'll start sending them out in tranches, so you can provide feedback. So enjoy. Good luck with that. Well, not only also, but also the amount of work that needs to go into this, but it will be a worthwhile exercise once it's finished, as you can see from Gary's work that he's done. And you can iron out all of the bugs, and then Clive and I will do ours in the new year. All right, thank you, Dave. Oh, you're next, sorry. No, you're next.
Sorry, Dave.
Good, Sarge.
Yeah, I did notice that. Thank you very much. Well, Rebel is probably get rid of this done before. Last thing I was saying.
The listener.
Okay,
Yeah.
further to the previous fully member briefing in regard to expanding the curbside services. We've obviously been talking to Solo, we've got Solo about having into a new contract arrangement. Now, what we're obviously looking at doing is improving the service from the 2 bins township and the 1 bin rural. Also looking at increasing our diversion rate from landfill, which is currently about 11.1%, which is fairly low in comparison to other councils. Some are about 16, some are about 24. So there is an opportunity cost there in regards to less recyclables going to, or less recyclables going to landfill, which will obviously have an effect on landfill. We've been engaging with the contractor in regards to pricing options and working out the logistics associated with it. Also looking at the possibility regional-wide, the MRLGA has a waste strategy, which looks at just either green waste or FOGO, which is food organics and green organics, meaning whether we try to capitalise on food waste as well, coming into the green waste stream. Which means if you're going down the FOGO path, then you need to be looking at increased pickups because you don't want meat and food stuff sitting in there for 4 weeks. You want to do it every 2 weeks. So we'll touch base on that shortly. And also looking at the service delivery, the extended services like broadening that out. It's been very much defined by townships. It's now going to look at areas, meaning like man of waters, I suppose conceptually, 3 bin system man of waters, rural living around Manor, 2 bin, and then potentially within Blushdown, Swan Ridge and Morgan, the shacks are very close proximity to the townships, looking at either 2 or 3 bin systems for those. And also we just start looking at the holiday homes. Some actually holiday homes are actually keen on the green's waste bin because they won't do so much mowing. So hasn't even touched on that in this one yet, but it's an opportunity for later. Excellent. So this is the slide. What we were looking at doing was the service options and the rate of pickups. So the township one, we've got 52 pickups a year for waste, 26 for recycling, and obviously looking at 26 for green waste. Or do we go down the path of because of the quantity and no FOGO being included? Do you do 13 pickups a year? So that's once every 4 weeks. So it turns out to do 91 pickups. Then when you look at the second one of dot points down, looking at the opportunity of 52 pickups for waste, as we're doing here, and then putting out another recycle bin to do 26 pickups, which means an extra transport movers down each road, or do we converse with the locals who actually have a 240 litre bin, not a 140 litre bin? And we look at 26 waste and 26 recycling, so it's all turned. So basically, there's no more transportation on it. It's really, in effect, cost neutral apart from the fact that you're putting a bin out there. And the cost at Brinkley to do the recycling. We haven't really divulged too much into the seasonal homes, but I have planted the seed in a couple of the top end holiday homes, and they seem to think that recycling and green waste may be a good option for them. So that's an opportunity that we may explore at a later date.
You can't have opt-in though, can you? So if
No, that's
they
good.
want it, everyone has to pay.
So just a bit of a breakdown. So currently, we have a two-bin system in the area. So we're looking at, obviously, instead of being calling a township, getting urban or residential to be a three-bin system. We would be looking at a 52 pickup, 26 for recycling, and in FOGO at 26 pickups. So that's obviously every fortnight, so 104 pickups per property. We currently have a 140 litre bin which does 52 pickups, and a yellow bin which has done 26, and it charges $340. If we look at the extra requirements for pick and flick only, you would add another $70 on that because that's the contractual cost of pick and flick.
What do you mean when you only add the cost? Yeah, you only add that cost.
No, but I also got the bin.
The next.
Okay, sorry.
So the additional process I need is a green lid bin, but then deliver it to the gate of Pete's. Now, the delivery at gate fee at Pete's is less than it is for recycling at Brinkley. So there is some cost comparison, and these are only estimated costs. So looking at what Solo have come back to us, if I was going to pick and flick another 26 bins, it's going to cost you an extra $70 on $340. On top of that, then you've got to supply approximately 2,600 bins, given that we will be expanding it. Looking at 240 litre bins, you're looking at $60 a bin supplied and delivered. Looking at that cost, amortising that over 5 years, $12 a year. So then theoretically, and these are only very much ballpark figures, the cost of the new service for a 3-bin system would be $422
For township.
for township or and urban.
So that will get the ratepayer a weekly red bin.
Yep.
Fortnightly yellow bin.
Yep.
240, so a bigger one, and a fortnightly green.
Photo.
They already get the 240. For recycling.
Yeah, sorry, but that, yes, yeah. So because they're doing it fortnightly, yeah.
So these figures need to be ratified. Okay, so these are just figures we put together from the contractual side of things, and also the supply bins, and then and gate fees and still need to be ratified. But
Gives you an
there's a level of
indication.
confidence. Okay, next option is if you don't go FOGO and you only go green waste only. And the reason why we've got this way is green waste can sit in the bin and it doesn't smell. But if you start putting food organics in there, it's not going to be pleasant.
Sorry, just a quick question about that in the FOGO. I know my mum has it in her council area that it's like a little small bin that goes in your kitchen essentially, and they provide you with silky little organic bags or whatever that you're supposed to separate with. Is that what the FOGO system is as well on top, right?
The FOGO system is the collection service where it gets disposed to. How you implement it, so I don't know why.
So that's a whole lot of extra cost we have to.
So
Well, we wouldn't do that. So that's a caddy. So sometimes councils give the caddy, whereas, for
Not too
example,
big
I
a
just
bin.
got the green organic the bag
Bags,
that then goes into the green bin. And
but
then
that'd be our cost, we have to.
No,
No.
the householder works that out.
only the disposal.
Okay, all right, just double checking on that.
Talking with the MRLGA, they've done a bit of a spreadsheet on this. They reckon that the councils that have provided the caddy still have more contamination than the ones that don't provide a caddy. So, they use a standard plastic bin or standard plastic bag. Put it in, the plastic bag doesn't decompose. It's already contaminated. So you're actually at risk of actually having more contaminated FOGO than what you actually are by not having a caddy.
People open the bin on the street and see a bag and they just assume it's a waste bin.
Yeah, true.
So this is exactly the same as the previous slide, except obviously less pick and flicks, $35 to do the 13 pick and flicks. Still got the bin advertised over the amount of bin for supplied at $60, advertised at $12 a year. That would be an estimated cost to provide that service to townships.
So the other one's $82 a year extra for everyone, even if they're not using it, and this one's 47. So
Okay, next slide.
So.
Okay, we're looking at the rural system. So if you kept the same waste at 52 pickups and then implemented a recycling, the current charge is 243. If you were to go out and do the red lid and then change it, and then I'll just clarify this. Some of the areas, when they rolled them out in the southern area, they actually ended up with green lid bins. So there's a bit of confusion out there. So we've sort of worked out that we're still gonna have to change the bin lids over, or it might be that those bins have been out there for 10 years or 8, 9 years now. You actually just give them a new bin and get rid of the old bins. That's what normally happens with most councils, because cost effectiveness will still replace those bins over time anyway.
So just a question, in the contract, there's no requirement for the contractor to replace bins at all?
Yes, as long as there's a police report number,
Yeah.
and then they notify Solo, then they.
Oh, just in general, like over 15 years or 10 years, like is there?
If it's been damaged or lost, then they ring Solo, and if it's been stolen, they do a police report number.
Yeah.
And then they'll deliver a bin.
But not just after 10 years, the bins need to be
No.
replaced, just as a wear and tear.
Yeah, generally when there's a new contract,
Yeah.
you would potentially do it, because if it's a change of supply or something, then
Yeah.
a whole new rollout.
So the $20 to change the lid, is that just for the lid or for the labour to change it as well?
That's what they've given us for the lid and changeover.
Yeah.
If you've got, well, I'm talking personally, we've still got the recycle, our recycle bin has got a green lid, and if you bring in the,
Green one.
recycling, why can't we just use our green bin lid, our bin, the green lid for recycling and get a yellow bin lid?
What are you using for waste then?
Well, no, I'm talking about when the green waste bin comes in. If in theory, we've already got a green waste bin because it's got a green lid on it and it's 340. So why can't we just use that as a green waste bin and then just get a new
Recycling bin. Ah, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Instead of having to change lids,
Yeah.
you can just be like, give us the one we need as a new one, and we can just get out the one that we've got currently.
Is that an anomaly or is that
It's-
across,
We've had it for years and years.
Yeah,
mine's got-
but what about your neighbours and what other
They've
towns?
had it changed, but we got forgotten somehow, but doesn't matter. It's still here, still here.
We did it a little while ago where Solo went out there and actually did pick up bins with the wrong lids. So the problem picked up at that time.
Well, our recycling has been only going out every 3 months. or
Yeah.
something, You know?
So my question is, Dave, with the auditing of say the rural areas, like I have had this come back to me as feedback from people. There's a lot of people, like me included, you know, because it is a bigger bin. I probably fill it once a month. I certainly don't get 52 pickups, and most people in my area will say, oh, maybe once a fortnight or maybe once a month. And I was wondering if we go about an audit with Solo of the actual, even though they're paying for a weekly pickup, what percentage of people are actually putting it out every week in those rural settlements? I'd like to know what percentage it is. It might not even be 50%.
I put my recycling bin out every week because mine's full.
We don't have a recycling bin.
Yeah, we don't.
We're talking about rural areas where there is no recycling bin. It's just a landfill bin, but it's just one bin, but it's a big one.
Yeah.
And so most of us do have to take our recycling to the tip. We put it in our sheds and then we take it to the tip. But a lot of people just commingle. Like the people that are putting it out every week are the ones that are just putting all their recycling in the landfill bin, and that's why it's getting full every week. But I reckon that isn't a very huge percentage of our rural community.
I've got 15 houses on my street, definitely 3 down our end, put it once a month, but everyone else, one person has 2 bins. So I think there's only an exception like
I think
us.
because a lot of people, they do feel though that they will put it out every week regardless if it's full or not.
Yeah.
And I mean, I used to live with the Solo guy and he told me that don't put it out unless it's full, because the bins are actually, or the trucks are correlated to pick up a full bin. So if you put out a bin with just one bag in it, which a little old lady will do, she'll just wheel out a bin to the street with one little bag in it. But then that truck has to then have be carried, you know, they're expecting it to be a 240 litre thing, but they're now picking up a light thing, and it can actually cause the bins damage. That's how often they get damaged, is in the automation of that truck lifting mechanism that puts them into the back. So yeah, I looked at the bin guy years ago and he said, don't put it out unless it's full. And so I was like, okay, so I just put it out once a month. But I do think in the rural areas, the fortnightly alternate of one fortnight of being a recycling bin and one fortnight or 1 week of being recycling and the next week of being a landfill bin would be a very viable system for our regional areas, as opposed to having an extra, you know, making it more expensive for people of the user pay system.
I suppose what we're just trying to cover off here is the service itself. and not be able to order and trying to work that out. Because the timelines we've got now is to try to get this in place. So we're just trying to concentrate is the service delivery. So, as stated, the 243 for the charge, extra 95 if you want to do the Equifix, those 26 pickups. Then you've got obviously to look at what you need to do to actually have yellow lid, 4,000 yellow lid bins, and also, and if you do you want to convert those to a 140 litre bin, and then they have the 240 litre bin as the other pickup? So that's probably a very different scenario than what the next scenario is. So because otherwise you've got a 240 litre bin in the rural area and a 140 litre bin in the urban area, still getting picked up 52 times a year.
No,
It's not fair.
So you've either got to go put a heap of yellow lids on with the existing red lid bins, and then roll out 4,000 140 litre bins.
Ours aren't regulated, I don't think, out in our area, it's just their green bins.
And that's the other issue is what the rollout in the southern area, we're rolling out the green bins with green lids. So we've got an identification problem that we've got to do. So that's what we're trying to sort out here. That there are sorted lids in the north, which are red, and there's assorted ones in the south which are green, which we have to do a conversion.
So Dave, so George, your point there is you'd want consistency between rural and townships on the size of the bins.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Unless it's the next one where they only get picked up once every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
and they need it,
Yeah.
You don't want to, if they're in the same service, you
Yeah.
don't want to have different
Yeah.
size. What you're saying, Dave, is you'd need to change the yellow bin, the red
Yellow
lid over, and so the yellow bin is bigger.
Yellow lid on the current red lid, throw that away, and then put a 140 litre out there with the red lid.
Yes, we've got.
Okay, that's this option.
Yeah,
Okay.
So this option is red weekly
like,
and
but
then,
smaller.
yeah, smaller red and yellow fortnightly.
Yes. So the logistics of this one has to totally change. Next smaller things. This is the other one where it's alternate pickups. So you leave the 240 litre bin as it is and give another 240 litre bin with the yellow lid. And still have to look at the red lids onto the existing 240 litre bins that are out there as green. So the current charge is still 243. Basically the bin cost as per below, but the pickup costs are neutral because they're actually still picking up and you've got 52 times.
Yeah.
It's my brain.
I think this is exactly what we want.
Um,
They have to be everywhere.
So what you need to do is approximately 4,000 bins, the 240 litres, so all you're doing is duplicating the bin with a different lid. We still have to look at doing it all on the green lid bins to change it to red so that we have uniformity. The only other addition to this is the gate fee at Brinkley, because none of this goes to Brinkley now. It all goes to Canberra Landfill. Brinkley has a slightly different gate rate, not much different at all, but it's just depending on the tonnages that go to Brinkley as to what the determination will be on that estimated rate. But on the basis of what our gate fee is for our internal rate for Canberra versus Brinkley, Brinkley's a fraction higher. So there might be just a slight conversion in that $260 then. So
But on that, Dave, like when I take my recycling, I probably fill up 2 of the recycling bins there full of milk bottles and green containers, and they all would go to Brinkley, so we're already paying for that.
yeah,
So
Yes, I was-
there'll be some savings because you
Yeah.
won't have people bringing their stuff to the dump much anymore.
What would be the likelihood of us being able to create a system like this for our townships as well, where they got, instead of having the 120, they had the 240 and it was an alternate pickup like across the region?
I think you'd try it in the region and see how it works
Yeah.
and bring it to the
It'll make
people.
it cheaper for everybody. It's a better system.
Some of the metro councils have experimented with the fortnightly service, City
Hold
of
fast.
Belfast
Yeah.
and one other council.
They did it opt in though, I reckon.
Yeah, there was an opt-in as
Yeah,
well.
I mean,
Yeah,
People do it. They have a week.
but I
of
think if we
leaving.
could do it and prove that it
Yeah.
works and no one's
Mm.
complaining, you could definitely bring it to town.
The other rural council was our, we did the fortnightly service there.
Yeah, this makes more sense. We're not having as much landfill anymore. People are caring more about their recycling and their composting and having chickens and other ways,
So
so.
this all goes to consultation, won't?
yes, this is going to form part of the report so we can go to consultation.
and I suppose the question, Dave, because the report will come, you'll obviously need to confirm some of the prices a bit more than just indicative. So point is to give you an idea, is there anything else you would want in that report? Yeah, we can rule out some ideas or
Look, I think with the current cost of living, the less, that's great for anyone that's outside. And I think the 13 bin green to begin with, I think you'll get a lot of pushback, giving everyone that monthly or fortnightly green bin and then having to pay another 100, you know, their waste charge is half of their rates if they're on minimum rate. So
Yeah.
I think,
So then you need to include the options in the report, but then council can, make a decision on what they want to go out with consultation on. Because, we need to hear from the community, see what they feel.
That's why I think it'd be good to include that concept to be involved in the consultation with this now for them to consider if they wanted a green bin, it would bring down the cost a lot more for them if it was considered an alternate weekly, they're recycling the coming 1 week, then their normal bin coming the other week, that would bring township prices right down to then feel like that extra green bin for those township areas doesn't seem so out of reach.
the green bin's just an extra cost because they already get recycling and rubbish. So that's why theirs goes up another $100 just for green bin. I don't
Yeah.
think you'll get much buy-in.
Because they're not alternate. If they were alternate, that would, like I'm saying, what they pay now would be reduced. Then that extra money wouldn't seem as much because they're not doing the weekly.
But you
pickup.
can't do, you can do alternate here because we're already putting it in the waste bin. You don't have green bin now. You can't, like Georgia said, her recycling bin is full every week, so you
Yeah.
can't not have that. Yeah, so then you are doing extra pickups because they're only doing recycling every fortnight now, so the township will be extra cost. And my concern is that we're making everyone opt in and some people might not have lawn or cutting or, or other options that they already got.
And that's why we need
So
consultation.
we provide the option of additional services, so,
Yeah.
extra bins, if you want an extra recycle bin or additional green bin, pay for it.
Yeah,
But, your standard is 3 bins.
Yes.
And it's fortnightly or weekly, whatever the
Yeah.
service is. And if you're not meeting your demand, you opt in for that additional service. Because that's the cost the household's prepared to take. I mean, at Barossa, we had special circumstance ones as well, where
yeah,
people have to,
nappies and-
nappies and things like that, because that's the worst in the waste service. So they're the things, in terms of when we do the engagement, is having those options very clear.
I'd also like to see a little map, or maybe just tell me which towns are considered rural or
Good point.
who,
It'd be
because I
nice
know
and
the
clear.
people on the other side of my road
Yeah.
are classed as rural.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were all.
So-
And that's-
So again, when the Barossa did its policy, we introduced maps to show the urban and the rural services, so it's
Yeah.
very clear. Because Barossa also had the opt-in
Yeah.
for the green service in the rural areas, so they provide waste and recycling in rural.
Yeah.
And opt-in for green, and within proximity to the town.
Townships.
And with your,
And you had to be either within proximity to the town or on the collection route.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that
and in the partnership program that you're doing, the township boundaries will probably change as well with, Madam Waters coming into.
So currently our township boundaries are gazetted, so you might.
Well,
to-
no, we don't.
Well, they have been.
Yeah, but I went through that exercise with the growth strategy, and there's very few, is that the township, because they're the township boundaries, don't represent towns. So Port of Madam is gazetted.
That they were gazetted when we had the previous rating system. That's why they exist. So I'm not, so.
Something to consider.
you may have-
All right, any other questions? I'm mindful of time. Exciting though, Dave. I think a piece of
Exciting,
work.
yes.
Sad that Mandy misses because she's
I know.
waiting at this.
She'll be watching.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm glad that she got
Really
it.
excited.
That's cool about having experience.
A lot of work.
Waste is probably that one. Most exciting, isn't it?
The amount of times I've been told to go, photo.
So the next item is another advocacy request that we've had from the city of Victor Harbor. Again, we need council feedback on these things because it's not just an administration determination on whether they're relevant or not. So the correspondence is attached, seeking your thoughts and guidance on whether you would like to see a report on this or a thanks but no thanks. As Simone shakes her head.
I think we've got better things to do on our strategic plan and waste our staff time on something that the government should be doing.
I agree.
Any difference of opinion? No, so what I'm hearing, we obviously don't make decisions, but the guidance is that this is not a high priority for council. Everyone's support, well, not support it, but is there a difference of opinion or?
Speak now, forever hold your peace.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Appreciate your feedback on that item.
Say 4 minutes.
Yep. So council assets leases, there's an apostrophe there. So Vicky is going to do a presentation on this, or I am.
Judging by the eyes again.
Okay, there's a misinterpretation on that, but that's okay. There's a presentation.
Ben can read. Oh, it's
Yeah.
pretty too.
Oh, cute.
Co-pilot.
But I guided.
Ah, yeah. Clearly. So this has come out of the discussion. Obviously, we're doing the asset rationalisation or land and building rationalisation. We've had a number of leases that well, a couple of times leases have come up to council, and council wasn't comfortable in progressing those, particularly the CFS, and there was a Blanchetown or maybe Morgan Pistol Club. I think it was Blanchetown. And so the agenda item or the motion for that was a further report come back to council, but no guidance on what that report looks like, because from administration perspective, nothing's changed. As in, we're still going through the rationalisation strategy. There's still leases either coming up. Now those leases just roll over. Obviously the intent was if we're going to sell a property or look to divest a property and it's got a lease, then why would we be extending that lease at that period of time? Obviously there's proprietary rights as well for rights of renewal. So we'll just work through the presentation. So council has a total of 62 leases over premises, both council owned and under council care and control. Currently 38 leases and licenses over council owned premises. So the difference between council owned and under our care and control. So these agreements are over 32 premises. So jump in, Vicky, if I miss any of the information. So of the 32 parcels of leased land, 19 will be considered as part of the council rationalisation strategy. So we'll just go back. So we've got 62 leases. 38 of those are over council owned premises. And these agreements are over 32 premises. Out of the 32, 19 are being considered as part of the land rationalisation strategy. And of the 19, these comprise halls, schools, and clubs. So like the Blanchetown shooting pistol club or similar. The total may change as a feasibility review because some may come in. Is that point, Vicky?
Well, it'd be like how we got to leases over one property, of course, is that feasible or
So
it's not, you know, just as you go exploring each one individually and use the lessee, you know, it may not be able to be part of the rationalisation.
So of the 32 parcels of leased land, the balance of the 13 consists of CFS emergency services, portions of council's land are utilised as operational, and the showgrounds being Madam Sporting Complex up there. These parcels would not be considered as part of the council's land rationalisation at this time. So just jump in if there's any questions on that. Currently, the following are outstanding. So 10 leases have either expired or require renewal. These leases are holding over. So that's part of the normal, so month to month, given that they've expired. 7 are the emergency services leases. So that's the CFS that we presented back in March, I think. And there's another slide on that coming up. And 1 is a lease and management agreement combined and 2 are commercial. So which 2 are those commercial, Vicky?
The laundromat
Yep.
has expired and organ and pharmacy.
So right of renewal clause provides the leasee with an extension of their current lease for an additional term. That could be 5 by 5 or 10 by 10 or 21 by 21 in some cases, Vicky. Council is obligated to renew these issues on the same terms, so it's called a proprietary right. So unless it's written into the lease, it might be a CPI increase or it might be enable a rent review which some of them happen. For example, one of our caravan parks has got 4 or 5 year, 5. And so when we redid that, we did a complete market revaluation of the lease, but then it's CPI built into that for the renewals. So council is obligated to issue a renewal on the same terms and conditions as the original lease. Lease is found to be, unless the lease is found in the breach of the terms of their lease. Any minor amendments to the renewal agreement require approval for both parties. So that could be changing the building or extending it by a slight part, looking at the Walker Flat Hall, for example, when we did a license for them, they may wanted a little bit more land in that. So that can be on both agreements, but it doesn't have to occur. Anything else, Vicky, to add?
No, it's not all allowed for a minor amendment, but yeah, if council have approved the initial 21 plus 21, that means they've approved at that time the right of renewal. So it doesn't have to go back to council after 21 years, it just gets signed. Unless they're in breach.
So any questions on broader leases and licenses before we go to the CFS component? I forgot to mention that I wanted the South Australian truck in there, Vicky. That's okay, it's a great photo.
Oh, I did, but then I changed it and it forgot.
All right.
Yeah.
But it shows you also the importance of the CFS and our emergency services in regions and the great work those volunteers do. So Safecom have requested new leases for their existing CFS sites rather than exercising a right of renewal, providing the ability to register the lease on each of the certificates of title. This approach provides greater security and clarity for both council and the CFS regarding property interests. As it says, the new lease arrangements essentially maintain the same terms as conditions on the current arrangements, but it's a new lease. That documentation is provided by the minister, by the Crown lawyers, but there are slight modifications that you can make. So Safecom maintain and insure each of the CFS sites at their costs. So this just gives you an update of what happened back in May, sorry, not March, as I mentioned before. We provided council with new leases or licenses. They were proposed for 5 21-year leases for Cambrai, Caton, Morgan, Sedan, Truro and Manham. And some notes on Cambrai. This is situated on a portion of land that houses the council depot, so just over here. Morgan is situated in a portion of the Morgan Activity Centre, and the CFS have contributed to some of the re-roofing challenges that we've had in Morgan, and that's happening at the moment, or has just happened, finished. Truro is situated on a portion of land that houses the council depot and has a 10-year license for it. Council deferred its decision, let's just say due, that was my typing, I'll take that responsibility, change that this morning, to the sustainability review and requested that a further report be brought back for consideration at a future meeting. So this presentation contributes to that. So comment here that council should recognise that although the minister prepares the standard lease, which I mentioned before, use of council-owned properties, council has a right to request modifications and final approval. It's recommended that council make a priority given the leases are out, Vicky. And we made the comment at the briefing, or not the briefing, of the report, that we asked the state whether they were interested in purchasing that land, and that was a flat, hard no, and that hasn't been the case elsewhere. Doesn't mean that there may not be other people who are interested, that we make it a priority to progress through that leasing process with Safecom for those that are currently occupied. Obviously, we can discuss any proposed changes on the terms of the lease arrangements as part of this, which could be the term or any conditions and clauses that as part of the agreement. And there's one specific that is mentioned on the next slide. So right of first refusal to purchase freehold, which is currently in all the leases, Vicky.
Yes, it's a standard wording.
And this clause provides the minister with first right to purchase the premises at land value only. And that's conversations we did have in Morgan with the CFS when we were looking to potentially sell that facility or lease it out or change the circumstances. And we're recommending this clause be altered where the building is council owned, built to provide the minister first right to purchase at the current market value of both land and building improvements. Why would we, if we're going to go down this path, sell it just for the land value when it should be about the improvements and also the land value?
Change the wording. A lot of them are CFS buildings on our land. And they don't change the wording in the lease for the ones where the CFS building is an existing council building or built by council on our land.
Yeah.
So I think it should change. So,
For example, Morgan, where it's part of the building,
yeah.
and that was one where we had those discussions versus where, and let's say, Madam, if I'm not sure if it is, but if it is their building on our land, then there's an argument for the existing wording versus when it's actually our facility. So discussions and questions, looking for, your thoughts and your guidance on what you want to do. Obviously, we've got, I think it was 7 that are out already. We've also got a list of ones that we need to progress, whilst, we potentially work through this process. Purchasing, if let's say we made a decision on a property or parcel of land that had a building that had a lease in it, it doesn't preclude someone purchasing it. Obviously, it does change potentially the market for people that may well be interested in that. So they're the questions you've got to consider as we move forward. It's our position that as a minimum, we progress the CFS ones, which we presented back in May. And obviously it's up to council on what and how we do from here. So happy to hear your thoughts or answer any questions that you might have.
So with the CFS ones, council, doesn't pay for any extra stuff like electricity or insurance or anything like that for all the CFS sites that you've listed there? Like,
Do you?
because, yeah.
Sorry, with CFS sites, they maintain, they insure, they do everything.
Pay their own electricity.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so there's no cost to
There's no
council.
cost to council.
Okay.
So how does that work in Morgan when you talk about half the building?
They would pay a portion. They maintain their own of the building, but they're about to replace the walls of the
Yeah.
because of damage. That's their responsibility.
Is there any, I mean, there's always bits of rumour mill out there that, and with election coming up, there's always a sweetener in the pot that there might be a standalone CFS station, sort of earmarked for one of those sort of ones. What happens there, I suppose? So if the minister decided that they wanted to build the Kerbside
Yep.
Madam CFS, not where it is currently located, but sort of somewhere else. So, yeah, what happens then with that lease? We don't hold them to that lease.
Oh, no, well, then they'd approach us if there was an existing lease in place.
Yep.
And they'd look to break the lease or,
Just not pay their dollar.
yeah, exactly right. Only pay
For
50%.
21 years.
All
Uh,
their license in Manham, so it's actually our building. It's only, they only have a license for 2 years.
Oh, they have one in Madam's building, yeah.
I mean, everyone can always get out of the lease of a license.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I do know with CFS when the trucks change or evolve, like over time, that the buildings themselves need modification with I know that happened in Guildford where I used to live, bigger trucks needed to have a whole new place built because the sheds they had currently didn't house the new trucks. There are incidences where we might see them maybe moving to a new building, right, that had to be purpose built.
If that's the case in Manham, I would think a conversation with our CFS officers, because if we set another lease for 10 years plus 10 years, are we going to get the new station that our officers need? Like I think a conversation with those officers, if we need it, we don't want to be giving them a long lease and then we'll never get this.
Yeah, Manham's finding everything a 10-year license, but a license can be or whatever you want to.
Yeah, look,
So
I
you
would
can
be
set
inclined to go a year.
5,
That's
2,
all.
whatever you like.
And Vicky and I are meeting with the CFS commander on Monday.
Yeah, so I think it'd be handy to I know they probably can't talk to you as CEO, but whether the officers could talk to councillors to get a little bit of buy-in of as to what they want, I don't know.
I'll ask the questions. I'm not sure that the government are going to make a decision potentially about building a new facility if they're going to, because they've got an existing
But
lease.
it would
So-
just give us an advocacy point that we could use.
So, yeah, what are you looking for from us? Because at the moment, we've stopped bringing leases because that was a position from.
And, yeah, I mean, I suppose my main concern with the leases coming to us and probably not so much with the CFS ones in general, but the other ones is what the actual like, what council is putting in or paying for. So in some it's electricity, in some it's probably insurance, and it's not across the board, so it can be sort of different. Some maybe water, you know, just looking at all those sort of things, I just wonder why council should be paying those costs when we're offering a lease for a peppercorn.
So unless
Yeah.
those come to council for consideration,
Yeah.
that's not going to change though, Councillor McGregor.
Yeah.
But correct me if I'm wrong, we've now got a lease policy where it's very clear on what we do for each. So it's all the ones you're talking about are in the past, when they come up
Yeah.
new or need to be
So then-
renewed.
Yeah, that's fair, but the message that we received was you don't want the leases to come because of the rationalisation strategy, not because of what's involved or not involved. You
I
know.
would have thought you do the rationalisation of that lease and then bring the lease, you know, once council make a decision on, yes, we're going to keep that forever, we've actually had a look at it because we've gone out to a motion to say we're going to do a full rationalisation of all our blocks of land. So we review that and then the next month, the lease can come to us. Once that decision has been made, then we've reviewed it and we can tick off a lease.
Sure. What are other people's thoughts?
Depending on the CFS, they're important.
Yeah,
Mm.
That's why we brought it to you in May,
Yeah.
Councillor Jules. Yeah.
So there could even be the same, like a item first on rationalisation and the very next item, the leases, and just depending on how that item goes as to whether council sign off on the same day, because then at least we can prove that we've done the rationalisation of that.
So we want to see rationalisation of those buildings before we move the lease.
That was kind of what council agreed to. We'd look at every single block of land we had.
Yeah.
Not that we'd sell each one, we'd just look at each one. So we're convinced that we've done our due diligence
So
on every piece.
we have not got that list.
No,
We've got a list of them.
we're getting bits at a time.
Yeah,
Mm.
we've got vacant lands.
Yeah. So the challenge we have from
Yeah.
administration perspective
Yeah.
is we've got these leases that need to be renewed, that we're not actioning. They just hold over under the same conditions, and that might be, given the timelines we've got involved in doing the whole process, you know, it could be a significant period of time, which is okay because they have a hold over lease, but we've got a responsibility to deal with those, but.
The land rationalisation of all those lands is going to take a long time, like it's a long, slow process, whereas the leases, there's still a lot there, but it's not as many. So I don't know whether we do, how we are doing dribbles and stages of doing it, but maybe the next stage is like, we've been looking at these first two, you know, groups of 15 groups of land for, you know, rationalisation. Maybe the next thing we get is the leases one. And then, you know, that gives people a bit more time to feel like we're not, you know, doing it all in that, you know, in one way. We're not just looking at land, we're looking at leases too. So we could maybe say, look, we've looked at 30 parcels of land that are being declassified and changed for, you know, whatever we might need, putting them out to consultation, we're doing that. So maybe the same thing now could be, the next stage would be the leases, rationalisation of those land parcels, and then bring that out to consultation. Before we then look at the next group of the 400 land parcels.
Oh, sorry, I'm not sure. I'm not understanding what you're saying.
Oh, well, I'm saying we've been looking at the land, we're looking at everything, right, for our sustainability measures, and one thing we said was, yeah, all these lands we own and these leases we've got, they're all just peppercorn and a bit, someone's got one deal going on, someone else has got another deal. They were all just individual deals originally made, and we're trying to like, yeah, rationalise all of that down. And I feel like we've done 2 chunks of land, one that's gone through today and it's going to go off to consultation. So maybe the next thing we do now is like, before looking at any more land parcels, we look at these land parcels of these leases and that's our next stage to then bring that out to consultation. And before we then go through the next group, because I know it's going to take us time and we've got quite a few things here we're looking at assets wise of what we're doing with those assets. And because we don't want to have leases holding on forever, and we do want to get moving with the CFS stuff now. So I don't know, I think maybe that's our next step.
I think what Victoria's saying in that thing that you put up, 19 of the leases were the land rationalisation, so they come to council as a priority, as part of the next rationalisation part.
Yeah.
And then once we've done that, then we can look at the leases.
That's what I was trying to say, yeah, I think that's the process step.
We're getting a bit too much in depth here because, and we sort of can't see the forest and trees. I think because the CFS are volunteers, but they're gonna be a group that continues going on into the decade. Just don't hold that back. They're a different category to any other community groups. It might be there or might not.
Yeah. I agree, councillor.
Thank you.
Yeah, we brought that to council in May.
But I'm just saying now, having people to think about.
No, I said, if that's what, so we'll prioritise those 19 parcels or however that works into, we obviously developed some timelines and we'll look at progressing those, Vicky.
And seeing this one's as soon as I get.
Yeah.
The major list is back on. It's not. Just changing that clause on our buildings.
Yeah.
And we'll raise Mayor Bailey's comments. Well, we're meeting with the command, I can't remember his title, the regional commander on Monday. I think as a response of the letter that we wrote. I think around the future of the Manhattan CFS. So we'll get some indication there as well.
Yeah, it'd be great to have them come and talk to us at some point. Like, yeah.
No,
No.
it's talking about 2 different people.
Oh, right.
All right, any other comments, questions? No? Thank you. So I think the last item, lost my agenda. Activation of community land. Thank you. So this is just a conversation as a result of discussion at council around when community make a decision on a parcel of land to say that's really important to the community, but where does it go from here? The Canberra one's an example, it's gone nowhere. We don't have any process in place from a council perspective. And so, as you know, Gary is working through our township planning project.
Yep.
We've got an open space activation policy or open realm, I forget the technical terms, so maybe do you want to talk to it, Gary?
So we have an existing overstored space public realm strategy, which was adopted many years ago, and it's not necessarily outdated, but part of the tourism precinct planning project is an opportunity to review that as part of that project. The project itself is delivering on the 11 township master plans. And so part of that is, how we can look to activate, public realm within these towns. So in some instances, that public realm will be council or community land. So yeah, there's an opportunity to then identify what parcels can be potentially activated through that project.
What's your experience of a process or a policy or guidelines to help guide council and the community on this? Because what we don't want is the community to say, hey, this is really important. And then it just stays there and we're still maintaining it or not doing it. Or we could have sold it off, which has been a couple of examples that we're going to hear from. Well, we took the Blanchetown one off, didn't we?
Yeah.
So yeah, have you got any examples of how councils have managed that?
The challenge is always, how usable the individual parcels are and where they're situated. In some instances, there is no value in actual activation. So that's something that we would have to consider as part of, our policy, and ultimately, you're not going to get market value necessarily for it. And sometimes you may have to simply just gift it to adjoining property owner, because they are effectively utilising it, currently, particularly in some of our cropping situations. But within the townships, it's a little bit harder. So yeah, it's always a challenge in terms of how you can, reasonably activate space, whether it can be used as a playground, a dog park, just general open space, with no real active nature to it.
So do you see this piece of work falling into some of that work?
Yeah, I think in terms of the master planning, I think in terms of us identifying all kinds of community land that is currently underutilised, what opportunities it presents in terms of activation in a broader sense, from a tourism perspective, in terms of some of our potentially some of our road reserves, whether that they present an opportunity to increase beautification for entry statements and the like, and that's where that project I think we're going to look particularly at. I mean, I look at Manham Main Street was in the Adelaide Road coming in. It's quite a wide reserve. Is there ways to make that look far more beautiful in terms of an entry statement to our main town? Is there? I think I say that's probably. Creating a dual carriageway, the central, a garden strip, things like that. So again, the project may identify those opportunities. Project may also identify for the growth strategy in terms of economic investment. We know that Main Street of Manham is, a very tight bottleneck. Is it the most appropriate to have our commercial centre in that sort of location, given we've got the IGA and other services happening on the main road? So there's opportunities to look at how some of our open space might attract that sort of investment.
And the ones that have been identified for the community, so that would fall in the same category. It's just about how we engage them with the community and say, hey, what are you going to do with this? Or this is what we see.
And I've also had the chat that while that strategic level plan is there, we'll be working with communities through the new community action planning. Some of these may have been already identified through the old district action plans, so we can revisit some of that with the community as to what interests they have in taking more ownership around maintaining and beautifying some of that open space.
Thoughts? So are you comfortable with those parcels of land that we're talking about where they've been identified by the community as being incorporated into that planning process to ensure that they're progressed in some form, or putting guidelines around?
Yes.
I think guideline, because if it's important to the community and they've said we need to keep it, there needs to be a buy-in from community. So and we need
Guideline says we're not going to do any additional that's not in our strategic plan, so the community group needs to take a lease or a license over that block and maintain it.
Because at the moment we have passive land that's been identified for divestment. Community have said no, it's really important, and then at the moment it's still passive.
Well, they're activating community land. Sometimes community land itself doesn't necessarily require an active, that bit of land we were talking about in Sedan was Canberra.
Exactly.
They just wanted access to the river because the only place they could access the Marne River, and it was a place where people had weddings, and it was a big tree there that people love in community, and it was the only parcel of land where they could get to the Marne without it being on private property. So that has already been used.
But who's going to maintain it? That's why it came to us, because we don't have the maintenance budget to maintain.
Nothing, so it's not costing anything now, but it's meant to be as it is, as in not improved. It's wild. It's
natural day, and that is an activation within itself. And I am seeing that with some of our parcels that they are heavily treed in a way that I feel like that is us having some kind of revegetation spaces in amongst all the cleared farming lands we've got, and we don't have to necessarily invest in any more revegetation processes because there's already vegetation on some of these sites. And I know a lot of regional areas are trying to do more rewilding in areas like that, where it's like it creates habitat corridors. We have a problem with corellas. If we had more activated corridors of areas of foods, not saying that would help our gorilla problem really, but you know, like food sources for habitat is important within our, especially within our region, because we are possibly one of the most cleared regional areas of habitat. So part of me thinks activating of some of those community lands is it's already being activated as habitat land. And I think there's a bit of that doesn't need necessarily council maintenance.
Yeah.
Like there's some benefit to letting it, the grasses be a little bit long in season and whatever, and you know, so.
A fair point. It doesn't being activated doesn't mean necessarily start
Dog
happening.
parks, they're not all going to be dog parks and sporting
No,
wrecks.
but I mean, yeah, the word activation in this context is much broader than that, and you're right. And you know, part of this process, Ben and I have had this conversation that my time in local government, community land management plan is probably the worst things that we've had to do as local government, because they don't really tell you a lot. But in terms of getting the right classification for community land, that might be for biodiversity conservation value, in which case then it's retained for that purpose. But we haven't classified our land to that degree. You know, if I'm wrong, but yeah, very few of ours are classified.
Our community land management plans all need to be, they all need to be updated,
Yeah.
every single one.
All right. So I think, is there any other comments or questions? Or if
The other comment I want to make about it was, I think about a few years ago, Landcare for Mid-Murray Council, there was apparently some report made where they did try to go through all the community land parcels and kind of talk about like that.
Yeah.
So, and when it comes to that kind of stuff, I feel like, you know, we do have a landscape levy and we are paying a lot more, like as we've been made aware in other council areas, that maybe our landscape board and those kind of people are the ones that are then going to be the managing bodies over those passive conservation benefits of community land parcels, and it takes it out of our hand a little bit and puts it into a community group's hands that are going to consider that as one of their areas of protection. Like, is this a conversation with those people?
Possibly.
Okay.
I think that's the thing, if we're maintaining, if the area is going to be, if industries say they want it, if it's valuable to them or whatever way, and we're not going to maintain it, we're really clear, because that thing, then it just needs to be documented that we don't maintain it and that the community have got the buy-in. But there is actually a member of the community that is, or a group that are responsible for
Overseas.
because it may not be like now, like in 1 year time, it may be 10 year time, that we might, council may revisit this and that block of land will come back up again. So it just needs to be documented there, this is how it is, so we don't maintain it, but the community is aware that the community has it. Yeah.
So that's why I think the classification of our community land is important, because then, you know, you can set service maintenance for those parcels according to their classification. So it might be, you know, conservation, biodiversity, you know, value, there's no maintenance.
Because one of them on the ones today was listed as shack settlement / conservation area. Like, so at some point we did classify some of them in the settlement areas as conservation spaces.
That might be due to the zoning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
any other comments? No. Thank you. That's the end of the briefing. So we'll take that feedback on that item, and Gary will consider that as part of that process. If there's no other items or questions, then we'll close the meeting. Thank you for your attendance. Have to go timing, Carol.